What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Live to Make podcast. I'm excited today because we've got a special guest, family member of mine, my cousin Jorge.
Hi.
He's an awesome podcaster and what did you say, like beer enthusiast? And,
God! Don't put those words in my mouth. No, beer enthusiast is good. Beer nerd.
But yeah, I thought it'd be cool to have him on just because, number one, he's my cousin. He's fun to talk to. Number two is that he has his own successful podcast. It's been going on for, what, 5
years? Just over 5 years.
Okay, cool. And I think what's cool about this, too, is that, like, I didn't really know much about podcasts back then. And I always kind of, like, saw some interest in it when I was watching, like, a few yours. Like, I guess I wasn't even watching them. I was listening to them at that point.
At that time.
That's when podcasts were just purely audio, I think, right? Like...
Yeah, I mean, there's been a huge shift to having video as a component to podcasting, and we're slowly heading that direction. Right. But we've been audio only the majority of our career.
Right. But yeah, so like I feel like when I started watching and listening to yours, I kind of like got inspired to kind of do the same for myself and you know get Jamie involved as well. So I don't know. I think like it's just cool that you were kind of in the space when it was sort of like taking off before. You know, a lot of people were kind of doing it.
Yeah, it's weird. So when we first started, and let's get it out of the way, it's the Who Goes There podcast. We primarily do horror-related content, movies, music, books, whatever. When we first started, there was a handful of them, and it was sort of open country. And now everybody's got a friggin' horror podcast now, which is crazy to us because, you know, there's not to say that there's competition, but it's getting harder. It's getting harder to be successful in horror podcasting, which is a really strange thing.
So you were there early.
We got there early.
Yeah. Hopefully that's a little bit of a help.
It's you know, you find out how many podcasts do you have in your player that you haven't listened to. Probably like 20, 30 that you don't listen to.
Yeah.
And so I think what happens is people just get bored. And so you kind of have to keep, you have to keep your content fresh. And that's the most difficult thing for us.
Yeah.
Do you think video aspect helps at all? Or do you think it's just another way to get views?
For us,
yeah.
Personally, I don't think that video has helped. We have sort of lived and died by our audio content. And I think that when we introduced video, it really messed us up a little bit because we were speaking to the camera as opposed to speaking to each other, which was
right.
It was the heart of our show. The heart has always been we're just buddies sitting around talking about movies. Mm-hmm. And when we moved to video, it became we're three guys talking to a camera. And that was difficult for us to process. And so we killed the video. Like 6 months ago now.
Yeah.
And we've slowly been talking about bringing it back in.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of difficult for us.
I think even if it's like not something that maybe you think that there's like value in, I'm sure there is value in it in your head because you tried it.
Yeah.
But I think it's just another way for like some people are more visual. You know, they want to see the people that are talking. You know, they want. You know, some people will just kind of listen like in their car or whatever. But for me, I'm a little bit of both. I like to like have a tab open at work where I can see if they're talking about something on screen. I can kind of pull it up and look and be like, okay. But sometimes I actually want to see the way that person's moving and kind of like their demeanor or whatever. But a lot of times I'm minimized. But
I can understand that. I mean, we're just we're mostly three ugly dudes that talk about horror movies. So to us, like we always like who'd want to see us like doing our show. But I think the few times that we've done extra video content, it's always been pretty successible. Nice. Like we did that ridiculous that one chip challenge.
Oh yeah.
And I was actually like sweating down my entire shirt, and it was people really
like you need to have that.
What pepper is that?
It was just I think it was just a ghost pepper.
Yeah.
They basically it's
the
one
Carolina
chip,
Reaper.
The Carolina Reaper. That's it. And they grind up one pepper on each chip, and it was.
That sounds so bad.
It was one of those things where like you're doing it and you're like, this is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. Simultaneously though, you're like, this is the
best thing.
This is the coolest thing I've ever done.
How so like that was just out of like a curiosity of like, okay, how can we make the show a little bit more interesting and fun and like something that people or was it like what was the mindset behind that?
That actually
just wanted to do it.
Yeah, it sort of started as a joke between my co-host Matt and I, where I was like, it would be really funny if we did that one chip challenge on the show.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, we'll get it. We'll pay for it, whatever. And we talked about it. And then like 6 months passed and you couldn't find the chips for sale anymore. And it really bummed me out because like they were on eBay for like $100 a chip. And I was like, oh, dude,
Jeez.
we're not going to do that.
That's wild.
Well, we were lucky enough to have a listener who had a friend who they had this big coffin of the chips in it. Like it came with like 12 chips. They did the challenge with their friends and they had 4 chips left over. And I was like, can I buy the extra ones? And she was like, I'll find out. And he was like, yeah, I'll sell them to you for regular cost. And I was like, yes.
That's so awesome.
Sweet.
So your audience basically hooked it up.
Yeah, they did. We got it through the audience members, which was really cool.
That's awesome. So if you guys have any things that you want to provide, just kidding.
It was stupid,
Send
man.
us anything.
Yeah.
It was dumb. It
wait,
was one of
not
those things
everything.
where I was picking out pieces of chip from my teeth.
Yeah.
And instantly, like it was
would kick it
amazing.
back up again?
It was hot again.
Where you said you were like drooling and stuff. Like
I was
bad?
drooling, snotting, sweating, an absurd amount.
Can you even say it tasted good?
No, there is no taste. It's just hot. Yeah.
Tastes
Is
hot.
that one on YouTube? Can we see a little clip of that?
That one, it's is it on YouTube? I think it's on Dread Central's Facebook page. Okay. I'll see if I can rustle it up.
But that sounds hilarious, man. We've been trying to figure out a way that we could do something like that on this show, like have some sort of just like funny bit where we not necessarily just talking about like creative stuff, but like just doing something that could be a little bit like funny for the audience, funny for us, like maybe like a taste test thing or like a blindfold
Right.
test.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It'd be interesting.
We got some ideas.
Start doing
We
bits.
got some ideas. We just
Comedy
gotta, like,
bits.
Just stand like okay, you got 10 seconds to give your best joke.
We'll like
Stand
set up like a comment, like a Jerry Seinfeld, like intro to Seinfeld looking corner in this room, and then people have to do a 15-minute comical stand-up bit.
Yeah, you just have like a flashlight pointing in their
Yeah.
faces.
Yeah.
That'll be
I
good.
think they'll all be really comfortable doing that.
You have like one heckler that is allowed to just kind of like say whatever they want.
Just
you have
like,
to try to
throwing a
challenge
piece
that.
of popcorn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boo. We suck.
Did you say boo or boo earns? Oh, that's a bad Simpsons joke. Sorry.
So I had a question for you. Since you're the podcast master,
Yeah, master.
like if somebody wants to start a podcast like right now, like what would be some of the things that you would have to consider? Like what would you do? You know,
The number one thing that people get wrong when they first start podcasting is audio quality. That is the death stroke of most podcasts, because for me, the way I consume podcasts is I'm listening to like 8-10 a day, and so if I run into a show that's got bad audio from the get-go, I'm out.
You're out.
I can't handle that. I can't handle stuff that is recorded in like an echoey room, like
Yeah.
if it's just or anything like that. Anything that is bad audio, I'm out.
it's a bad experience for your ears.
Yeah. And then the second biggest thing is consistency. Like if you're going to do a show and you want it to be successful, if you figure out if you're going to do bi-weekly, bi-monthly, weekly, monthly, whatever you're going to do,
Sure.
just be consistent. I mean, because what happens is people lose interest like that in a heartbeat. And if you're not keeping people engaged, you're gonna suffer.
I think that's something that we need to like we struggle with that. You know what I mean? Like we just started doing the podcast again. I think there was like probably like a 4 or 5 month gap, but part of that is just like prioritizing. And I think that more and more people are seeming to be interested. So just like you said, just keep doing it. Maybe like a once a month or twice a month would be good.
I mean, I would even say that if you could commit yourself to like saying once a month,
Yeah.
and doing once a month, and if you end up doing a little bit extra, more content on top of that, then you can't do bad.
Right.
It can only be good for the show. Yeah. I think for you guys, I think that your biggest struggle is you have to find somebody to bring on if you're going to be talking about like different creatives, because I think for you guys, like you do cinematography.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, there's only so much the two of you can talk about cinematography and graphic design before,
Right.
you start feeling...
Well, I think, like, it doesn't have to necessarily be that, like specific. It can be
Yeah,
like,
we're
any
branching out,
creator,
right?
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, like, that's why, like, I feel like you're appropriate to bring on, because you are essentially, like, a motivated individual that does this outside of their day job, basically. Like you started this as like a side hustle, and it became like a fun hobby, and you know you spent the time, and that's basically what this whole podcast is about. It's like passionate creators.
Yeah.
You know,
we it's not too hard to find people. I think it's finding the time for them to come on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yeah,
for
it's
sure.
one. Yeah, that's also. I mean, that's also the other thing is like just finding the time for 3 people to sit down is nearly impossible these days.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so I just like walked in.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I mean, our third co-host, Chris, just fell off the show a few months ago, and just his life just caught up to him. Like, it was working too much, and you know, he's got to keep his marriage together, like we all do, and he just didn't have the time for him. We're like, you know what? It's you can't be mad.
Right.
That's just what it is.
What about your guests? Are they coming to you a lot? Or I mean,
why don't you describe the
they
format of the
always
show?
good?
real
Yeah,
quick,
so
and then
I
we'll
mean
go-
the show has changed quite a bit in the last 5 years. We used to focus a lot on getting guests, like special guests, actors, directors, producers, whatnot. And we kind of felt like we couldn't be honest when they were on the show talking about films, because like, when you're just talking with your buddies, it's easy to talk about things. The second you bring on an actor or a director, for us, or for me mostly, I always felt like we lost a little integrity, and we have really shifted away from that. So it's been 3 co-hosts forever, and occasionally we'll have like a fourth person come on.
do you feel like you're like not being so subjective when they were on?
Yeah.
So you're like, oh yeah, I love that because they loved it, or like they had interest in it. And you're like,
Yeah,
oh,
and I don't think
cool.
I don't think it's too inside baseball to talk about it, because I mean, it's our parent company is Dread Central, which is one of top 5 horror websites.
Awesome.
And we do run into issues where they will have a sponsorship of a movie, and we'll also be covering that same movie, and it's hard for us to really say like, okay, well, do we really say what we feel about this movie, or do we temper it? So what we've kind of been doing is just not covering those films. It's really difficult for us because I can't go into the show. I can't go into the show and feel like my integrity has been questioned.
Yeah, for people listening, if you guys start changing the way that you do things, like I feel like it would be inauthentic and like not cool to them. People that have been following you for many years, like you're like, oh, I see what you're doing there. You're not really being truthful to who you are as a brand, as people that are delivering content that's what you decided on. So
it's tough, dude, because I at the same time I want to be honest with people, but also there is a certain amount of politickiness that happens in horror. It's weird to say that, but
so you guys sit down and you just kind of talk about horror movies. Like,
yeah,
I know it's more than that, but
generally what we do, and we found that there are some outliers, but there are some people that don't like the format of our show that'll give us like 1-star reviews on iTunes, and I go, well, why are you even listening to the show? Because we get reviews where they're like, well, it's just 3 idiots talking about movies, drinking beer, and it's like,
yeah.
Did you not get? Did you not listen to the first 2 minutes? Like, yeah, you figured it out. That's our bit. So it's always been, we've always been the type of host that we're very upfront. There's not much that we leave on the table. Like we do talk about our daily lives. There's 20-30 minutes of just catching up with us, and I do think that we've fostered an audience that enjoys that content. I don't think there's a lot of shows that can get away with it. I don't, because we get it. We get reviews and they're like, well, these friggin' idiots, like, I wish they'd talk about the movie, and it's like, well, give it a chance, like, just get your way through 10 minutes of the show, then we'll talk about the movie. But that's it. Yeah,
if they really want to, maybe they could skip.
They could skip forward, right? Yeah. So we basically do a catch up, like a family catch up type deal. Then we talk about relevant horror news, and then we take a quick break and we go right back into talking about the movie. We don't run any ads. We run strictly off of Patreon now, which is amazing that we can do that. So The show has actually started making us a little bit of money, which is really nice because
Sweet.
we've had in the last like year we've had so much. It's we've dumped so much money into it now. Like Patreon was we were able to buy a laptop because of Patreon.
Wow.
I had to buy all new mics. You know,
Upgrading
it's
everything.
been really, really nice.
Do you feel with all this podcasting, like, do you feel like a relationship with your audience? You mentioned that they sent you stuff every now and then, but like, what is that like?
Yeah, even beyond like, you know, listeners will send us artwork and whatnot. But even, I mean, I've said it before, and this is like my number one benefit of doing the show is like when people will email me or like hit us up on Instagram and they're like, you guys got me through a really tough time in my life. You know, just listening and being part of like your family, like so to speak, your internet family, has gotten me through a tough time. And like, okay, that's it. That's why we do the show. That for me, that's it.
Makes you keep doing it.
Yep,
That's pretty awesome.
yeah, that's basically it. Like the money that we make is cool, but we recycle it right back into the show. And I mean, we're not collecting a paycheck. You know,
Right.
It's not one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, we're not making money doing this either. I don't think we will.
Wait, you're not?
He's getting all the checks. You goofed.
I told all the sponsors to send them to me.
That's how you bought that new surfboard, dude. What the heck?
Yeah, not at all. It's just fun.
Okay, so here's a question for you. Since you've started this podcast, what are some of the things that you feel that have like come of it, other than like monetary things like that? Like what value has it brought to your life? I feel like, you know, like you have an audience now, so it's like.
Yeah, I mean the relationships that we've created through the show have always been really interesting to me. Like that we have people across the world that chat with us is still mind blowing to me. Like we've got a kid. He's not a kid anymore. He was in high school when he first started listening to us, and he's in college now. And I was like, you know, this kid named Dion, and he's been a great fan of ours since 8th grade, I think, something like that. He's in college now, and he's almost graduated. And I go,
so
what?
Cool.
Like, what the heck, man? It's crazy. That and also, I mean, the horror community is it's pretty tight knit.
Yeah.
So we've made a lot of good friends in the community. We've been fortunate enough to be in partnership with John Condit at Dread Central, and that's been really a bonus for us, you know. And for those Frights and Pints events that we did,
Yeah.
he would provide a lot of the giveaways so that we didn't have to come out of
What's
pocket.
the Frights and Pints? I mean, I've been to it, but for people that don't know.
Yeah, we haven't done one this year yet because we've just been incredibly busy. But our Frights and Pints nights, we basically do sort of a Mystery Science Theater 3000 style viewing of a movie where we all hang out at a bar and
That's cool.
watch a movie together. And it's been really fun. We've done
What movies?
a ton of them. I mean,
Yeah.
we've done Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Let's see, a couple of the old Peter Jackson horror films, which you probably haven't seen, like Bad Taste and whatnot. And that's a bit above like normal horror fan stuff.
Yeah, I'm very baseline.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. You know, see if we can move you into more extreme stuff.
I'm definitely into that.
But yeah, we've done a few charity events too, where we work with Pinups for Pit Bulls to donate to their cause, which it's always been really fun. Those charity nights are super fun.
That's awesome that you're using your platform for stuff like that too. You know, like it's very like selfless in a way. Like you're giving back with the platform that you've built. You know what I mean?
I mean that's always been important to me. Is I think that when you get any sort of notoriety, and I'm not to say that we're famous. We're like Z level internet
like
celebrities. That. Like, you know, we're bottom of the bottom. But I think that there's enough of our listeners that we can make an impact in horror, and that to me is kind of interesting. And you know, the ability to make a small change in a huge community is kind of cool.
Yeah, man. Making waves.
Yeah, you know, small little ripples, but
do you guys ever
I'll
get
take it.
like featured in other publications or other podcasts or any other like horror? Like, do people ever like take clips of your audio and like play it?
Not that I've been aware of. I mean, we've got friends in other shows. Again, not to say that there's competition, but there is a sense of like, well, you know, our show's better than theirs. We've had that since day one. Yeah. And I've tried to temper that because it's so easy to get into like, well, we're so much better than, you know, we don't need to work anymore. But it's always a matter of like, you got to get better. You have to improve your show. But yeah, we've got friends that mention us on other shows, and you know, Matt has been a guest on a couple wrestling podcasts, which he's really into wrestling. I'm not. That's not my bit. Yeah. I started another show with the guy who owns one of the guys who owns Three Punk Brewery.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's just really just the friends that I've made that I think has been the most, you know, rewarding, most gratifying thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, for me, it's just like, I don't know. I just like being able to have conversations with people that do cool stuff, and that, I mean, like I said, I was inspired by your podcast because it's literally like you're doing what you want to do. Like you're having a conversation with your friends, like you're having some beers, you're just talking about topics that are interesting to you, and it's like you were gonna probably do that anyways. So why not take it to the next level and like share it with other people so that they can kind of, you know, reap the benefits of a relationship with cool people. You know?
That's exactly how the show started. So Matt and I were at a baseball game, a Padre game, and we were doing what we do. We were talking about horror films and, you know, and whatnot. And he sort of goes, well, why don't we record this? And I go, for what? Like, who would listen to this crap? And he goes, I don't know. Let's just do it and you know, we'll figure it out. And it was kind of wild. So we had that conversation at the beginning of the game. By the end of the game, we had the email. We had bought the domain name for the show that we named at the game, and we had our first guest lined up. Like all within like a 2-hour, 3-hour time span.
Serious business.
Well, it was just like, let's do it. Let's either do it and shut the hell up about it, or you know, we're not going to talk about it anymore. So that was 5 years ago, and it's
one of those ideas that you like cashed in on, basically. Like you,
to an extent, right?
A lot of people have ideas, and it's really easy to throw them out and like kind of like theorize with people and just kind of come up with them. But like it's like the execution is like rare that you see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also, I mean, there are stats that I think it's Podbean that's put out that like 65% of podcasts don't get past episode 5 or something like that, and you know they have listener stats at like, if you get, I think, 150 downloads per episode, like total, then your stats are already better than 95% of all podcasts. It's crazy. Like the amount of shows that are out there. Well, because anybody can do it. Anybody can.
Oh yeah.
Anybody can grab a mic, have a laptop, upload to iTunes, and you've got a show. So it takes a little bit of like desire to want to keep it going to be at all successful.
Yeah.
I mean, like I find it's challenging for sure. Like we don't have any crazy numbers on ours or anything, but like I think that just showing up and doing it, you get better. You know, make it more interesting for people that are listening, and just being consistent. You know. Like
well, I mean, I've kept an eye on your YouTube channel, dude. I mean, the stuff that you're putting out and the fact that you're not, you know, it's not a dead channel. You're getting a ton of views, and I mean that's you're already more successful than most YouTube channels. I personally,
and you can use your platform, your already good YouTube channel to do this.
Yeah,
and bump that, and
that's what it's all about, man. I mean, just sharing,
and it's still relevant. And like he said, I mean, you could always, even if you if we only want to do one a month, you can always do little things on the side to keep the consistency going, along with your tutorials and all that.
Yeah.
So I have a grasp of what you do for your day to day. I have no idea what you do. I mean, okay, so I know you're into videography, but like, what's your day to day life like?
It's never the same. When I'm not shooting, I'm editing or doing pre-production for a shoot. So, little backstory: I'm freelance, but I work on retainer for a company called Pure Cinema, downtown San Diego, and they do a lot of commercial work. So I'm in there pretty much every day. For one, it's a cool office, and for two, they have me on retainer. So I'll do, you know, anything they need done. If we're editing that day, I'll help them edit. Or, you know, if we have a shoot coming up, I'll do pre-production with them, like storyboarding, scripting. gear prepping, and I'm their DP, so I'm going to be shooting with, and I'm helping them create the story of this commercial or whatever it is. But also I'm freelance outside of that, so I'll pick up my own work, whether that's, right now it's a lot of word of mouth, which is good because I have a lot of work with them and I want to do a lot of work with them. So whatever comes in is just a bonus.
That's awesome.
So same thing kind of. I'm pretty much every day doing something video related.
And he's damn good at it too.
Thanks. So I mean, it's just a very long learning process of like,
it's like anything, dude.
I mean, it's looking back on my stuff back in the day it's terrifying.
It's always weird
it's
to look
just
at
like
early stuff though.
It's just crazy, and it's like I see how much I still have to grow, and like, but I love it. It's fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, because I wanted to bring your thing in because I know I don't necessarily want to skew this into like a horror episode, but
I knew we were gonna talk.
Well, yeah, and my whole upbringing has never been like I'm not number one a horror fan. I'm a film. I like film.
Oh, nice.
And so I go into horror examining it as a fan of film, not necessarily horror.
For sure.
The last like 2-3 years, we have seen a huge shift of dynamic in horror film. Like you've got movies like The Witch, Hereditary, Get Out, all these that have all been that look incredible. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it's amazing to me that now horror is starting to become a little bit more, what are they calling it, like
trendy,
post horror or something like that, where it's like it's something that has evolved past just regular horror. It's more like just great cinema. Like I think that horror is becoming more, I don't want to say this word, but more pretentious.
Okay.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I love pretentious movies. I love movies that are like glasses pushing up. That's my whole bit.
Bernard from Westwood.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah. And so I've noticed in the last few years that shift has become, more art house horror. And I don't know, like, is it just because we've got production companies that are doing it? We've got Blumhouse, who first started sort of like this movement, and now, what is it, A24, which is, has done a few things.
Yeah, I like them.
I mean, their visual style is actually incredible. Like everything they do visually, it's like, you guys got it. You've got it handled.
It's so good. And they do so many different genres really well. I don't know. I think this might not answer your question, but I think it's because video equipment, video production is so cheap now. It's the cheapest it's ever been to produce a movie. And I think that a lot of people, by pretentious, do you mean like almost kind of crappy movies?
No, not at all. I guess that's a meme more from my show. Okay. I just mean more instead of just being about scary stuff.
Gotcha.
There's actual character development and more attention.
There's more depth to it.
More depth to it, more attention to filming and framing. And
well, I think my answer was going to still kind of answer that, was that I think it's still a very cheap time to make high-end movies. I mean, you can make them on even a great, a $15,000 camera still has a great picture compared to what people used to shoot on.
Right.
And I think that opens the door for a lot more people to make productions. And you have people that maybe wouldn't have had a chance before to hop on these productions. There's more of them. Right. So there's more of a chance to...
Maybe also, too, just like other movies like Ex Machina that are coming out. Like a little bit more... Like maybe that's not horror related, but I feel like those are a little bit deeper and there's a little bit more meaning. Like the Black Mirror stuff. Like there's a lot more like to those types of movies. So maybe people are like, oh, we could take this template and put it into a horror movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think... I don't think you're wrong, dude. What I'm seeing a lot more is that people are doing horror movies like sci-fi movies. And I think to me that's really interesting because my absolute favorite genre is horror sci-fi. So my favorite movie or horror movie is Alien. Like that's the best. It doesn't get any better.
It's pretty solid.
It's an incredible film.
I thought you were gonna say, what is it? Is it Jason in Space?
No, that's a good movie though.
That's both.
See, I also enjoy movies like that. I'm not, I don't strictly I don't turn my nose up on, on that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but
just
to me, heady horror, I think is really, really smart.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean smart in again, in a pretentious way. Yeah. I just think that where the shift is going, where it's not just slashers and blood and guts, I think that stuff is so incredible to me, where you can have subtle horror.
Yeah. So you're excited about it then?
Super excited.
Yeah, I think it is just the wide increase of productions that are coming out and the productions that can be made at such a cheap budget, and I think there's just a lot more, and I think people are feeding off each other as well. I mean, that always happens. You'll find somebody making this type of movie, and there's everything is just an inspiration off somebody else. It's all art is, right? You're just building off of other people's stuff that you've seen. So I think it's gonna happen now because that stuff's happening. People are seeing it,
and I think the internet has allowed communication to happen instantly. If you've got a tip or trick and you're willing to part ways with it, then it's easy to disseminate that information.
Has a script. And he's like, I need to get it to this person. He might be able to get it to them faster and sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think the internet, you can attribute a lot of it to that too. Just the fact that you're able to get your information out. A kid can make a movie on his iPhone tomorrow, and then upload it, and some producer can see it, and then all of a sudden you have a new movie, So it's
what the first movie that we ever reviewed was called a film called The Battery. And in fact, we got the director for an interview. And that movie is one of our favorite films of all time. It was made for $5,000. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's basically the story of two guys that have survived the zombie apocalypse, and they are sort of friends. They're trying to find out what their relationship is during this movie. What's great about it is it's not really a horror movie. It's the story of two guys that kind of hate each other that learn to be friends. I would definitely recommend it to anybody who is listening. The Battery is fantastic.
The Battery. Okay.
Yeah.
What year did that?
We'll have to list these out.
2012. What was it?
The Battery.
2012 or 2013.
Maybe list these out underneath.
The Battery. What is it about that movie that is really brilliant, I guess?
Well, the director, so we are sort of internet friends with the DP on that movie, this guy named Christian Stella. Really, really funny, really clever guy. And they have such an eye for making things, little tiny moments in a movie seem huge. Just there's one scene in the movie where one of the characters is listening to a CD player and dancing around. And on paper, it sounds crazy. You wouldn't want to watch a guy dancing around with a Walkman for 2 minutes. But because it's such a moment of catharsis in this movie, you're this is really brilliant and this is really effective. I just think those two guys, the director and the DP, have such a good relationship, and they know their film style so well that it's magic, dude.
I'm watching a little trailer right now. It looks like it's shot really well.
It's it's wild. This is a wild movie.
It's funny, at the very beginning it said Dread Central had a quote. They reviewed it.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then we've been friends with the director of photography for for a bit now. Yeah, it's a good film. It's not really all that bloody. It's not violent. It's a really slow paced little film, but it's really good.
I feel like we just have to ask him now, what is within the past couple of years, what are your couple favorites?
So in the last couple of few years, so recently a movie called Hereditary just came out. I don't know if you guys saw it. I mean, amazing.
So good. A24, right?
Yeah, it was an A24 joint. The ending to me was one specific moment was kind of weak, where the body was sort of floating up to the treehouse. I audibly laughed out loud.
Dude, I heard that multiple times throughout that movie in the theater, and it was really distracting and weird. because there's parts that I didn't think were.
People laughing.
Yeah, there was a lot of people laughing actually.
So if
I don't think people got it.
If you haven't seen the movie, probably you have seen it, or you haven't. Okay, then I don't want to talk about it because there's some serious like spoilery stuff that if it's spoilered for you, it takes all the weight out of it.
Right.
But there's one scene in particular which is not funny, but the way it happened, I'm sitting there and I go, well, I'm super uncomfortable, but this is actually kind of funny. So yeah, The Hereditary is incredible. One of my favorite films.
What makes a movie good like that? I guess. Like, what do you look for in movies? And sorry, I'm not trying to like. I still want to hear the other movies that you're recommending, but what do you look for?
So I don't get scared anymore. For lack of a better term, like that muscle for me is like completely wasted away. There's nothing that scares me anymore. To me, I just love characters, man. I love characters that are done well. If characters are done well, the plot can be kind of a mess. The pacing can be kind of a mess. Characters and sound. Those are the two things that I clue in on real quick. If your sound is really bad, like if you have really bad ADR, and horror movies are really, are really like it's not good. Bad ADR to me, I go, well, I'm out. This is a bad film now.
I mean, it makes sense. You got a podcast, you know all about sound as well. So.
Yeah, that's the one thing. It's to me, it's character, sound, plot, pacing, cinematography is somewhere in there. But I don't discount a movie too much if they've got like if they've what they're working with is they're not spending $100,000 on a camera.
Oh, of course, audio is way more important. Actually,
I think so. Anyway,
no, it is, and I think a lot of production people know that,
which is weird for a visual medium, but
but it would be terrible, like you said, to watch something with bad synced or horribly synced audio to someone's mouth. Come on, that's like number one.
Yeah.
Hopefully our audio is all right.
We'll be all right. Don't worry.
We're still learning. We're still learning. But but I think you're right. Like characters are definitely like for me like a big part of it. Like they carry you through the story. You know what I mean? If you can't resonate and you can't like have empathy for these characters and feel like you're part of it, then like how is it a good story? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why not to get out of horror, but like that's why Lost was like one of my favorite shows because like I feel like the character development in that show was just really brilliant. And there's like weird smoke monsters and stuff and stuff that maybe I'm like I don't know, like I like the smoke monster, but there's other aspects of that show that I was just like not sold on.
They were dead.
It
can be weird, right?
That's the thing about Lost. It was never about the supernatural stuff. Like to me, it was never like, okay, where does the smoke monster come from? What's the donkey wheel doing? I don't understand. Like what? That was never.
It's irrelevant in a way.
It is, right? It is because all I care about is like when is Jack gonna kiss Kate? Come on, when is this gonna happen? This needs to happen. You've been stitching him up since episode 1. What the hell?
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean it's
and so many different types of characters in that too, and just different cultures and different types of stories. Like you couldn't get bored.
A lot of people hated it. Right? Am I?
I feel like the last season and the ending, people really did.
But do you really think they survived that plane crash? I mean, come on.
Well, I don't know. Do we want to turn into a Lost podcast? Because that might be interesting.
Hey, I've read a lot. It was one of my favorite shows.
A lot of fan theories.
I've read what I.
They weren't dead the whole time. Is that what you said?
From my understanding, is that they died on impact, and the whole series was them they had to find themselves or finish their past lives before they were allowed to enter that church, come to that church, and then finally pass.
See, I didn't see it that way. I thought that everything happened.
I read that,
and then when
I didn't get that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but then like when they died on the island, then they were ready to go to the church thing, like basically like heaven, So everything that happened actually happened. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but that was like what I took out of it. That's what I like about it is that you can kind of take your own meaning out of it. There's no like definitive thing.
I think that was one of the points.
So to continue the same thread, a few years ago, a movie called The Witch came out. I'm sure everybody's seen that. That's another fantastic art house horror. One of those movies. The Witch. There's a little known movie called The Greasy Strangler, which is as horrible as that sounds. It's a bad movie, but like it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies where you're watching it and you're like, there's no way they're gonna okay, they showed that, all right, cool. There's no way they're gonna, nope, yeah, they did it, cool. It's gross, it's disgusting, the dialogue is a mess, but it is one of my favorite films that we've ever talked about on the show. The Greasy Strangler.
Sounds like it would have a lot of interesting topics.
I highly recommend The Greasy Strangler.
Okay.
Let's see.
Be prepared to...
Be prepared. It's not for the faint of
hate
heart. Yeah, it is not for the faint
Hate to
of
love
heart.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely have that like that interest in you, or that part of you that can just laugh at some dumb stuff.
You have to, man. I like horror films that are meant to be bad. I don't like bad horror films. Like I know a lot of like horror, and even like some of the Friday the 13th movies. Like some of those are bad, and I don't really enjoy those. Like I don't have a soft spot for 80s horror like a lot of my contemporaries do. Right. I just want movies to be good or have a sense of humor. Like that's really it. Right. Let's see what else. Get Out. You've seen Get Out. Everybody's seen Get Out. I mean, as a first time, well, both of those. It's John Krasinski and Peele. Was it Peele?
Well, he did Get Out, right?
Yeah,
Jordan Peele.
Both of those guys are horror directorial debuts, and it's amazing. Like how they were able to create these films that are really friggin' good. Like
it's weird how like I guess it makes sense. Like somebody that is in front of the camera a lot, they're part of the story. They have to learn it. They have to kind of like immerse themselves in the story. Like if you're like the most qualified person to then direct, I feel like, because you know the process a little bit more.
Well, and also
a lot of actors go to directing.
Also, I think that I know they're not directly related, but comedy and horror are strange bedfellows, man. Like the number one thing in comedy is timing, right? So like if you've got good timing, you're going to be funny. Like I think that's one of the biggest things is timing in comedy. It's the same thing with horror. Like there's a lot of like tension build up, and then climax and denouement and all this sort of stuff. And I think that the transition from comedy to horror is sort of like a natural progression for these guys, and they're killing it. I mean, both of those guys, amazing.
Can't wait to see what they come out.
I think Peele has another movie coming out.
He's got something else coming out.
I don't think it's horror, though.
I didn't do my research, and I don't know that movie, but they already started the sequel. They already started the pre-production for the sequel of A Quiet Place. So,
really?
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see where they go with that.
A more Quiet Place?
Out of theaters right now?
You cannot. It's been out of theaters for a bit. In fact, I think it's on Blu-ray and VOD.
I haven't seen that one yet.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Talk about a movie that relies on soundscape. It's huge, and it's amazing.
If they had bad audio, that'd be so bad.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it would be really bad.
Well, okay, so like, do you ever see yourself maybe directing a horror film or anything?
No, man, I don't. I for as much as I talk about like cinematography and acting and plot, and I have no idea what goes into making a film.
But like, would you want to tell a story? I guess like something that like you could think would be interesting.
I would probably write a story before I did any sort of film. I think that my strong suit is probably more like the written language, if I was to say any of it. And I'd probably start with like short form horror. I think that would probably be where like I would be best at.
Like No Sleep Reddit stuff?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I have, and I don't want to like toot my own horn, but like my thing has always been like I have kind of a good way with words. I'm not super knowledgeable when it comes to many things, but I can handle a conversation pretty adeptly.
So then podcasting kind of came natural to you then.
Nice word drop.
Nice.
Adapting.
Showing his wordsmith skills.
But yeah, so I think that maybe even a script for a short horror film would probably be something I'd be into. But again, it's so hard to write natural language, and not come across corny.
I feel like you should. So one of the directors at Pure Cinema has an idea for a short thriller he wants to do, and I feel like we should have you like analyze it before we maybe shoot it, and you can critique it.
Hey, I'm waiting.
He's a great writer, but like I think he's definitely never done a thriller or horror movie. So I think input from someone that critiques it so much.
I'm a script consultant.
A horror film script consultant. That's super pretentious.
Yeah. Put that on my friggin' resume. Check.
That'd be cool though. Yeah, put that on your.
I think it'd be cool though if you like.
I would definitely be up to checking that out, free of charge even.
All right.
pay you in beers.
For sure. You can come to the private screening for free.
There we go. I'm in. Just kidding. That's all I need.
How do you deal with like on podcasting? Like, do you ever get in like lulls where like something just isn't interesting, or you're like, because I know that for me, I'll have times where I'm like, I don't know what I should be talking about next. Not a lot, but that does occur sometimes. So I feel like for me, like starting this podcast with Jamie, like you have to kind of get that rhythm down after a while. You have to like learn how to like just be a good communicator, but also like how to, you know, sometimes you talk over other people, or you have to kind of like suppress yourself. You know, you have to find that little flow, and I'm learning a lot about it. So what would you give advice for like that?
Yeah, well, you know, when you're talking, it's interesting. You talk about conversational flow specifically. I think that the biggest thing that like new podcasters, their problem is they're just waiting for their chance to say something instead of like really processing what the other person's saying. And I think that's sort of difficult to change that, because in your normal day-to-day, when you're talking to somebody, you're interrupting all the time. You're like, wait, hold on, you're an idiot, listen to what I'm saying. And I think the shift away from doing that but still keeping the conversation natural is probably the most difficult aspect of our show. Secondarily to that is to talk bad about something, super easy, right? To talk bad about a movie and be like, oh, I hated this movie, I hated everything about it. It's that simple. Like that's, you know, anybody can do that. To have opposing opinions on something is also easy. Like if I love the movie and you hated it, simple. We can talk about, well, why did you like that? I don't understand. What's your problem? Talking intelligently about a movie that you both like, that has been the number one thing where we fail at. So really? Matt and I, we get into this thing where we're just like talking like, how do I talk around this without being too vulgar? The problem is that when you have a movie that you both love, all you're doing is gushing about it. You're like, oh my gosh, did you see that scene? And it was so good, and you know, and oh man, that character. At that point. You're just fanboying. You never want to be the fanboy. And so the balance that we had to strike between fanboying out and critiquing the movie, I don't even want to call us critics because we're not critics. I mean, you know, our opinion is worth nothing. We're discussing movies, you know, to an extent, right? Like we are critiquing the movie, but I wouldn't call us critics.
You're not asking to be that.
No, I mean nobody should take us seriously. Come on, if you listen to one episode of our show and you like what we're doing, we're not critiquing movies. Like that's the number one thing we're talking about, I'm sure. So that has been the number one problem that we've always had, is talking about a movie that we're both positive on.
Interesting.
It's really difficult because you think you're like, oh, we're gonna have so much to talk about, and then 10 minutes in, you're like, well, we talked about our favorite things. Now what?
There's only so much you can say about something, like how much you like it. Yeah. And then it becomes like you're just dragging on, and it's like, well, why are you still talking about how much you love it? Like,
yeah.
Is there an angle?
Yeah. What's your point? It's like, well, I love this movie. Yeah. No shit. We got it. Like we've understood that you like this movie.
So when that happens, like, what are some things that you guys have found that work for you to kind of combat that? You don't know yet.
Well, not that we don't know, but what'll happen generally is we'll struggle through an episode, and then at the end, Matt we'll look at each other and we'll be like, that kind of sucked, huh? And he'll be like, yeah, that did. I go, okay, we're scrapping it. We'll just scrap it. I mean, there's no amount of editing that you could do to a bad episode to make it good. You know, it'd be 10 minutes.
Yeah. And you leave some in that are maybe bad, like maybe you didn't think it was your best, but you kind of have those like ebbs and flows.
Yeah, I mean, we do. We had, I mean, I would say about a year ago, we had a run of about 20 episodes that I didn't feel were very good. Yeah. And it was, we were having a little bit of sort of internal turmoil. Like one of our, Chris was having some trouble with his family, and so it was that was leaking into the show a little bit. That our outside stuff was leaking into the show a little bit, and it, you know, people were messaging me like, "What's going on? Are you guys all right?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're fine. Like, what's the big deal? Like, Chris is just, you know, Chris is going through some family stuff. Jorge's got a second kid. Yeah. Matt's going to school. Like, it's all of this personal stuff that was showing through on the show." Whoa. And we didn't even realize it. Looking back, it's like, yeah, that handful of shows was kind of rough.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Never thought about that.
Guys, I'm okay.
I'm not.
Well, and you know, and the fact of the matter is, we're always okay, right? Like none of the stuff that happens in our lives is like if we really weren't okay, we wouldn't be doing the show. Like if Matt got to the point where he was like too stressed out to have the show in his life, I'd cut it, dude. Because for me, the important bit is our friendship. Like Matt's, you know, basically my best friend.
Right.
And so if the show ever came into like, you know, if it was like the show or our friendship, the show would be dead. I'd
Right.
kill it in a second.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have that friendship first, then the podcast doesn't exist.
Yeah, and we don't, I mean, and I feel bad because we don't hang out nearly as much outside of the show as I would want. But I've got basically zero time. And, you know, and he's got a life that is difficult. He works overnights, and there is very little hangout time.
I think it's just cool though, like that you guys do have your day jobs and you have your lives and your families and all this stuff, and you still find time to do something that you love. And I feel like that's a really great message, you know, like I my hat's off to you, you know what I mean? Like literally, like I feel like more people that are at home right now listening, maybe or maybe not listening, like there's people that aren't going for something that they probably should, like something that would actually make them happy. You know what I mean? And so like that's, and I keep kind of saying the same thing, talking in circles, but it's an inspiration, man. Like I really think it's cool, and I think more people need to try something, you know?
I would say because podcasting has such a low barrier for entry, dude, get yourself a little microphone, plug it up to your laptop, just talk about your day for 20 minutes. Like if you feel like anybody out there listening who probably is a creative person and probably like a graphic designer, because if they're following Cody, that's probably their bit, right? There is nothing more satisfying than getting your thoughts out and having just like a little bit of feedback on something. Even if it's like, hey, I'm going to send this to my cousin and he's going to listen to 20 minutes of me rambling, like, and he's like, oh, like, tell me more about this. And then it could lead to something else, dude. If you like podcasting, it's fun. You're not going to make any money. It's a lot of work for what it is. But at the end of the day, dude, I feel really proud of our show. I feel really proud of what we've made, the connections that we've had, the friendships that we've created through the show. And so if the only thing the last part of that bit that I can say is like, if you've got any inkling of doing a podcast, just freaking do it. Yeah. Do it on your phone. Like, that's all you need.
It doesn't have to be elaborate or intricate.
For sure.
Although I did say audio quality is the most important thing.
Which won't come from your phone.
Which will not come from your phone. But, there's ways around that. And, there's simple ways that you can get a real clean recording for $100. Like if you can spend $100, you can get like a Zoom recorder, and that'd be more than enough to get your thoughts out. And I think that's important.
I completely agree, man. I mean, that's why we're doing this. Is number 1, to learn, number 2, to inspire, number 3, I haven't thought of a number 3, but to
inspire again.
Inspire again.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to like? Do you want to sort of tell people where they can find your podcast?
Yeah, so we're on every social media. We're basically on everything except for Tinder. Yeah, so basically everything is Who Goes There Podcast. WhoGoesTherePodcast.com is our main website. We're super active on Instagram. That's where we get the majority of our interaction. Like I think people like have basically left Facebook for Instagram. We'll see what the next social media platform is, but yeah, everything is Who Goes There Podcast.
Anything coming up? Any Frights and Pints?
Frights and Pints is coming up soon. We have had a little bit of a venue issue. The new owners of the Ugly Dog don't really feel like the movie night is worth their time, and so we're trying to find a new place, which is proving to be difficult. But we'll get that up and running again soon, and the next one should be our charity night. So it'll be pretty awesome.
Well, we'll look forward to it, man. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Appreciate it.
All right, well, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate the viewership, and let us know what you think about this podcast in the comments. And we're trying to be more regular about our uploads, because I just learned from you that we need to be more consistent. So
yeah.
But yeah, we'll see you later.